The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus said to his disciples, "You are the salt of the earth. But if salt loses its taste, with what can it be seasoned? It is no longer good for anything but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city set on a mountain cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and then put it under a bushel basket. It is set on a lampstand, where it gives light to all in the house. Just so, your light must shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your heavenly Father." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Pretty awesome, right? A ton of altar service this morning, right? It's exactly the way the Mass should be, right? We go all out here at St. Bernard. One of my favorite quotes from the Second Vatican Council. Some people think that the Second Vatican Council did away with a lot of the traditions of the church, but there's some things that the Second Vatican Council used. It uses words like the church militant and the church triumphant. How many of you remember those words, right? Kind of words from ages long past in the church. But one of my favorite lines from the Second Vatican Council, it's documented on the liturgy. It said, "The Mass is where the church triumphant meets the church militant." In other words, it's where God's army in heaven meets God's army here on earth, right? So I love when we have a ton of altar servers, right, with the Knights of the Holy Temple, and it looks like an army, right, coming in to the Mass. It's exactly the way that it should look. Right? So it's a beautiful thing. So make sure to thank one of the knights after Mass for their service here at the altar. Today's gospel, it says, "You are the light of the world." You are the light of the world. Something I tend to think about when I think about us being the light of the world, I think about one of my favorite saints, right? It's one of the saints who are on our saint display over here in the overflow, and I want to show you guys the picture. Some of you might recognize this person because I have spoken about her before. Right? It's one of my favorite saints. This is Blessed Chiara Badano. Right? Her nickname was Luce. Does anybody remember or know what Luce means? Light, right? It's the Italian word for light. This is Blessed Chiara Badano. She died in 1990. Right? It was the year I was born, so I always kind of felt a special affinity to Blessed Chiara. But I really love the story of Blessed Chiara for a number of reasons, right? First of all, because just look at Blessed Chiara. And sometimes when we think about the saints, we think about people from centuries long past, ages long ago. She looks like she could come right out of Crawfordsville High School, right? See, sometimes when we think about saints, we think that they're totally different from us. But the reality is that saints look just like us. So Blessed Chiara, I love seeing her just because she seems so relatable. Right? The story of Blessed Chiara is a really amazing and touching story. Chiara was, as a young girl, she was living in Italy, and like most young girls, right, she loved to play sports, she loved to spend time with her friends. She was not particularly keen always on doing her schoolwork. Sometimes she struggled in school. But she also was one of those youth, we have some people like this at St. Bernard who, even from a young age, they just kind of have a natural sense of God. They want to be close to God and things like that. And that was the kind of girl that Blessed Chiara was. When Blessed Chiara was 16 years old, she was on the tennis court. She was playing tennis. And all of a sudden, she had this extremely sharp pain in her shoulder. And it made her drop her tennis racket. And she was never able to play tennis again because she went to the doctor later that day. And they found out that she had a rare form of bone cancer. How many of you have known somebody with bone cancer? You know that it's a very terrible, right, and painful disease. Right? Kiara, when she found out this was her diagnosis, she did what any courageous person would do. She decided that she was going to fight it, right? And so she began a year's worth of really difficult treatments of chemotherapy and radiation and other such treatments. And after about a year of treatments, she realized that it really wasn't making a difference. Her doctors told her that none of the treatments were working. And so Blessed Kiara, she made a prayer to God, and she said, Jesus, if this is what you want, then this is what I want too. And she embraced her illness. And the rest of her life she spent offering her illness to God and trying to find any ways that she could serve others. So as you may guess, right, she spent the rest of her life in a hospital for the most part. And in the hospital, there were a lot of other youth there with different illnesses and sicknesses. And so she would spend much of her days actually walking the halls with other patients. And it caused an extreme amount of pain because she had bone cancer. Her parents would beg her. They would say, Kiara, you can't be doing this. You got to stop walking so much. And she said things like, well, I can rest soon, knowing that her end was near. People used to come and visit her in the hospital and thinking that they were going to come and cheer her up, and they found that she was actually the one who was cheering them up. In fact, her reputation for this became so well known that her bishop actually came to visit her in the hospital. And he was amazed at her cheerfulness and her joy. And he asked her, Kiara, how are you able to be so cheerful and joyful in the midst of all this? And she said, Bishop, every day I just try to love Jesus more and love others more each day. As you can tell, she had beautiful hair, right, for a young girl, and her hair began to fall out as her cancer progressed. And when her hair would fall out, she would lift it to the sky and she would say, Jesus, I offer this for you. Before she died, she actually wrote Christmas notes to her parents that she left in the attic of their home so that after she had passed away, her parents would find it at Christmas time. Loving notes from their daughter. When she was getting ready to die, when the end was very near, she told her parents that she had one last wish, and that was that she would be buried in a wedding dress, because she realized that the day that she died would be her wedding day with God in heaven. So she has to be buried in a wedding dress. Her last words were to her mother. As she lay in the bed dying, her mother was obviously very sad. And Kiara's last words to her mother, she was 19 years old. She said, Mom, be happy. I'm happy. She was happy to be going to God. Absolutely beautiful story. And it's a story that is so relevant and so relatable to all of us. Many of us, we have different things that happen to us in our life. Maybe some illness that we have. Maybe something that happened to us when we were young. Maybe it's a difficult marriage or a difficult job. All of us have different things that we have endured in our life that have scarred us. And the question is, how do we handle those? How do we respond? Do we respond in anger towards God or towards others? Or do we say, maybe this is something that I can offer up for the salvation of the world? Maybe through the power of God, I can make something beautiful out of this suffering. I also love the story of Kiara because many of us, again, when we think about saints, we think about people who are like these mystics, right? Who can just be enraptured in prayer for hours at a time, right? Kiara wasn't a mystic. Her way to holiness was very practical. She just tried to love deeply, to love God and love others. She tried to be a light to others. And those are things that any of us could imitate. Blessed Kiara's nickname was Luce, the light. Jesus tells us in the gospel today that we are to be the light of the world. So the question we should be asking ourselves today is, Are you a person who people would see as someone who brings light? We know that there's a lot of injustice in our world. There's a lot of cruelty in our world. Life can be very difficult for some of us. How do you respond? Do you return and contribute to that same darkness? Or do you choose to be a person of light? We know that in our culture there is a lot of darkness, especially as our culture becomes more secular, people despairing of God's existence, people despairing of eternal life, people despairing of any meaning or purpose in life. Are you a person of hope that shares the hope that we have with others? People desperately need God in our secular age. There's a reason why in the United States of America we are among the wealthiest and healthiest of all the people who have ever existed. And yet a third of Americans claim to be extremely unhappy and unfulfilled. It's because we're turning away from God. Are you a person of hope that shares the hope of our faith and the light of Christ with others to a world who desperately needs it? What about our parish? Do people see St. Bernard here at 1306 East Main Street, Crawfordsville? Do people see our parish as a light to the rest of the community? I regret to say that I don't always hear people speaking highly of our parish. Sometimes people have rather sad things to say about experience they've had from parishioners here. Thankfully, it doesn't happen very often, but on occasion. Is our parish a church that brings light to the community? Are you a person who brings light to our parish? Again, regretfully, I've had some occasions where people have told me that even though they had been coming to church here for years and years, for some reason or another, they couldn't come to Mass for a while because of some illness or surgery or something like that. And they said it was like nobody even noticed they were gone. How do you approach this parish? Do you see yourself as somebody who has a responsibility to be a light to your fellow parishioners? We are to be the light of the world. And I pray that all of us might be inspired by this amazing story that any of us could imitate of Blessed Chiara Badano. Now, speaking of the light, I just want to share one final thing with all of you. Sawyer, if you could grab that for me. I told everybody these last few weeks that 2023 is the year of positive change here at St. Bernard. And one of the things that we really want to highlight this year is all of the amazing parishioners who are volunteering their time at our parish and being a light, right, to others, to our community. And so from now on, the rest of this year, every single week, we're going to shed light on some of our key volunteers. And so this morning, I just wanted to share with you the first two. Okay? First of all, we have Teresa Rowland here on your left. Teresa Rowland. She's the reason why we're able to do Eucharistic adoration every single week at the parish. Right? She, instead of just asking me to have adoration every week, she said, "Father, I'm going to help you do this." And so she sets up adoration every week, and she also spends literally multiple hours every Wednesday in adoration because she fills in for people who can't make it for whatever reason. So she spends hours here every Wednesday, right, in front of the Blessed Sacrament. So I'm very grateful to Teresa. Also here on your right is a young boy named Pablo. Pablo is one of our altar servers at the Spanish Mass. He and his parents actually also clean. They clean the bathrooms on Tuesday evenings. He's really involved with Hispanic ministry and religious education and many other things. So we just wanted to shed light on some of our volunteers. You'll be seeing these in the narthex throughout the rest of this year every week. There will be stories of other volunteers. There's so many people here at St. Bernard who are being a light and are contributing to our parish, and I hope they might be an inspiration to all of us. As a reminder, after Mass today, Annie Roach, our volunteer coordinator, will be out in the narthex again after Mass. Today, we're moving into the second phase of volunteering here, so she now knows who does everything. Now she wants to ask everybody, what are you interested in doing? And she has these amazing sheets she's created. Literally, even if you can only help once a year, you can still fill out this form. Everybody should be able to participate and contribute here at St. Bernard and be a light to our parish and to our community.